time I heard Miles Davis was in high school. I'm sure I heard him before, but I didn't really know. But it's this record Erykah Badu has called Baduism, and she had a live concert, and the opening song, the opening vamp, was So What, and at that time I loved it. I was like, yo, I don't even know, like, what is this? Erykah Badu's a genius. And my friend was like, no, that's Miles Davis. I was like, who? It's like, that's Miles Davis, man. You know, go check it out. And it was So What was the name of the track. And basically, she was just playing and just singing her own lyrics over it. But I went back and I listened to it. I'm like, that is Miles Davis. So yeah, that was the first time in high school. It was around like 10th grade when I first heard and recognized that it was Miles Davis.
Well, after my first time hearing Miles Davis, I immediately went to find, I guess, what his most popular record was, and many of my teachers and my jazz friends in high school who had been studying jazz longer than me would always say, you want to listen to it until you can sing it, and then you can start putting it on your horn. So I listened to the record to the point where before I knew it, you know, probably within definitely a month, I was already singing not just Miles's solo, but everybody else's solo on that record kind of blew. Even the piano comps, what we call the piano comps. Just, it was part of a huge part of how and why I fell in love with jazz.
All right, so my first time hearing Miles was like the melody, Pueda, Pueda. And it was, you know, a friend of mine named Martin. He made me a cassette tape in high school of like all these different jazz musicians. And so what he did was he took his cassette player, and he didn't have like a lot of cassette tapes. They were all records. So he put Kind of Blue on, and then he put the needle down, and so when you listen to the cassette tape, you could hear all like the of the record, you know, and then that's it, and it was incredible.
That's awesome. First time I heard Miles was on a compilation cassette tape my pop had that had different tracks from Kind of Blue, 7 Steps to Heaven, and then it also had what's that record that they did at the NAACP thing? What? Four and More. Yeah, that one. It had that concert, and that's when I got hooked to Miles.
Right.
Yeah.
And you see, people walk past the jazz thing, you know, the corner where they have jazz, they walk right past it. So the fusion that's it nowadays for us to ad-lib against. It's a better background.
Speaking of ad-libbing and improvisation, when you were playing the piece time after time out there, could you describe to us the feeling you had when you were interpreting that?
Sometimes I play it with, you know how Stanley Jordan plays guitar with the rhythm in it? Sometimes I play and put another rhythm when I play the melody. I also put a rhythm underneath the melody, but it's all with the trumpet. It sounds different every time. I'm trying to say. Every time I play it different.
What do you feel? What's going through your mind?
Nothing. You know, you just, when I play something like that, I just feel it. You know, I just let it go through my body. You know, and that comes out like that. You know, I just divorce myself from the audience and just, if I play it the way I hear it, then they'll like it. But if I don't do that, they're not gonna like it, and I'm not gonna like it. So I let it take over. through my body, just like I would do if I was kissing you.
Well, what amazes me the most about Miles, it's really tough to narrow in on one particular thing. Um, you know, he was such a trendsetter in so many different lanes, if you will. I mean, of course, everything from his ability to evolve his music throughout his various periods, to his fashion, just his charisma, if you will, during interviews or candidness, to his what he popularized is what we call trumpet players call the harmony mute, and his one of his kind of I think underlying approaches was because he would really treat his harmony mutes badly. He would throw them, let them hit the ground, and do different things. And then after a while, many of his his peers who idolized him at the time would take their harmony mutes and just put intentionally put dents in it, push them. You push it in, you can kind of, and then you begin to kind of get your own individual Miles Davis sound, if you will. And I spent some time with a trumpet player who was a great friend of his, Eddie Henderson. A great bit when I was in graduate school, and he would talk about Miles and just Miles isms all the time. It's a lot to narrow in on. I can go for days.
first thing that comes to mind for me is Artistry. You hear him play a melody to a song. It doesn't matter when or where. It's as if it's the last thing he's ever going to do in his life. He just puts so much care into it. Whatever the thing he's going after, it's so charismatic the way he plays the melody, And then the other thing I think is, great artistry is like, we can achieve it. Most of us never will to that extent, but we can try. And the other thing that comes to mind with him is courage. Just the courage to do that, do him. He had so much courage. He had courage, and it's like, now that's something that we don't need talent for. I can follow that lead of courage of just like, you know what, like, do what you do what you think is right, do that, and don't worry about it. So I take those away.
me, what amazed me about Miles was how he was able to take Duke Ellington's concept of, I'll say like throwing alley-oops, like artistically to people in your band. Like Duke was able to do that like on a large scale. Miles understood that formula and put that in his small band. Every band that he put together, he was like Professor Xavier. He knew everybody's superpower, and he strategically put them where they would sound the best. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, that's by far like that's my thing whenever I think of Miles' genius.
What amazed me about Miles Davis, honestly, is his power to innovate. Every decade during his whole career, he was a trendsetter. He had an idea. He got the cats that could flesh that idea out audibly, on the bandstand. And I really think that he had it's a superpower.
Mm-hmm.
And and a lot of people who have that, it's not a lot, but a lot of people who have that, it always amazes me because I think it's like a sixth sense. He said that he would choose people who, in his band, who would take certain care of their instruments. He would always know if they took good care of their instruments, that they were a really, really good musician. But he already had the idea of what he wanted to do in his head. He just was led to the right people based off of this OCD thing that he had for himself, and it always worked out. That's amazing to me, to be honest.
Miles Davis's music has impacted me, I would say, as a band leader and as someone who strives to be an artist as well. Oftentimes, I find myself in situations where I can be creative and I'm curating different projects, if you will. And so, to the point that some of my colleagues made about his ability to choose the right people for the right situations, I strive for that in my own day-to-day assembling of bands, if you will. Also, I think just from a musical perspective, the way his bands, in all of their different forms, everything from the Prestige recordings to the Black Hawk recordings to the Cellar Door sessions, all of his bands had a really keen intent to interact with one another on the bandstand, almost as if they were sharing a brain. And so I really enjoy playing in situations like that, and just strive to be more, I would say, in the moment, more present when playing in quote unquote jazz situations, if you will, musical situations.
Miles Davis's music has impacted me because, of course, I'm a drummer, and he picks the best drummers. You got Jimmy Cobb, you got, of course, Tony Williams, Philly Joe Jones. Those three are trendsetters in their own right. And I really appreciate his music because of that. And on top of that, all the people he had in his bands went off to do their own thing as well. So it was kind of like a central point that kind of spiderwebs out into other genres that he's impacted a lot of people just because they were in his presence on the bandstand with him, and he's sharing the thing is, it's the freedom of the music, like how he takes his concept of being free and like articulating that so pure enough and clear enough. Doesn't matter who he chose, they still got that. They just understood it. It went, like he used to say, it goes in the body. Like the music, when you play it right, it goes in the body. And that, for me, is one thing I am always going to have like at the forefront. Whenever I play a gig, I want my music, all my notes to go inside the body. And that's what he's taught me. And that's going to stay with me forever. Please.
Well, I mean, I wish I'd gone first. Those are great answers. I don't know how I can add to that. Wow, those are that's beautiful. He's so beautiful. I mean, I kept going. When I was thinking about this question, I kept coming back to the word freedom. You know, the word freedom, and how mighty that word is, and how important it is. You know, and the word should matter for everyone. You know, and this artist, Miles Davis, is just like the forefront of freedom, and it's not even in his. It's not just in his music. You know, it's in a whole lot of things. You know, so that's the word that comes to mind for me, freedom.
Miles's music, his concept, has impacted me. Is really in the area of rhythm, like. Miles was a master rhythmist, which is why, you know, like as Devin was saying, he was able to pick the drummers that he picked. In his autobiography, he talked about like different things that he picked up from these master drummers. And when he talked about Max Roach, he talked about how Max would protect the beat. But then whenever he talked about Tony Williams, he talked about how Tony would light a fire underneath, you know, like the different people he was accompanying. So he was very intentional, even in his own approach to the rhythm. I would argue that he was really playing drums on the trumpet, and as a result of his harmonic sophistication, he was able to impose things harmonically that otherwise wouldn't fit because of his mastery of rhythm. And once again, the intentionality behind that, like it was not an accident. Like he knew what he was doing with the rhythmic choices that he made. I could go on forever about that, but yeah, Miles has impacted me in the area of rhythm.